Hey guys, welcome back to another great game of CDH. And with June now upon us, I want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month from the members here at deadonboard mtga. And with even more happy news, I know I mentioned a giveaway a little whiles back. Well, I finally heard back and have the full details. I reached out to our sponsor, Monarch, and they were stoked and wanted to give away something really cool. Additionally, my local game store, Games IRL in Avon, Connecticut, also really wanted to help out. For our first place winner, you'll receive a booster box of March of the Machines. And, drumroll please, a lifetime membership to all Monarch events. I know, this is basically a dream for any CDH player. And what's even better, Monarch has just announced its next event to put on what I've heard is going to be the best CDH event that's ever happened. And with your lifetime membership, you'll get free access to this and whatever else events that they have in store. For our second place, you'll receive a booster bundle and any design currently available on my storefront. And for your third place winner, you'll receive 1 collector booster and 3 set boosters of March, as well as a box of custom dragon shields with our logo featured on the back. I know I haven't done a giveaway in a while, so I really wanted to go all out. For entry and rules, I'll have the entry linked down below. Also, leave a comment on the video when you first started watching the channel. And don't worry, even if this is your first video, you can still enter. Also, have you heard the news? Your favorite CDH YouTube channel has released some cool merch. And if you're interested in picking up some sweet new apparel, come check us out. Also, if you like what you see, consider joining our Patreon, as with your help, we can keep producing the videos you enjoy. And if you want to play with us, hop on our Discord. We have an ever-growing community that loves to talk MTG or whatever else strikes our fancy. And we would love to meet new people. Alright, block there, kill that. Oh, that is trample. Guess I'm just dead on board. First up is Steve, piloting Najeela. This is a 5-color thrasios consultation list that backdoors into an infinite creatures and combats combo with Najeela, who even if just left alone can amass a horde of warriors and take their opponents out. Next up is Chris on Tymna Jeska. This deck aims for an early Adnos or Peer, and can assemble one of many infinite mana combos to sink into Jeska. Tymna's card draw potential and Jeska's board control keeps it relevant in all stages of the game, and this deck has a very streamlined game plan with both removal and card advantage in the command zone. In the third spot, we have Ryan playing Shorikai, Genesis Engine. This is a humility control deck, as Shorikai is not a creature and can win through humility, unlike a majority of other commanders, with another benefit coming as an outlet for Isochron Dramatic Scepter, since this commander doesn't require either haste or a turn to wait. And bringing up the rear is Hidden on Marneus Calgar. This is a mid-range deck that looks to combo quickly if it can, or prolong the game and gain advantage using its commander's card draw and activated abilities. It also has the power to beat down pretty heavily on your opponents if need be. The deck runs a lot of Esper good stuff, but has a lot of fun synergies with its commander. And without further ado, let's get on to the gameplay. Hidden does mold down to 6, but Steve starts off with a Taiga, and is banking on some islands coming out, as he casts a Carpet of Flowers. Also, Chris at this point realizes he does have a pregame effect, as he puts the Gemstone Cavern into play, exiling a Peer into the Abyss. Chris shocks in a Blood Crypt, and for 2 casts a Grinding Station. Ryan wants to deny the carpet and plays a turn 1 Urza Saga. Hidden shocks in a Godless Shrine and has a turn 1 Soul Ring. He follows it up with a Chromox and imprints an Offer You Can't Refuse, and continues on as he casts a turn 1 Mystic Remora, ending his turn with a Grim Monolith. Steve cracks a Misty Rainforest and goes and grabs an Underground Sea. He ends his turn with a Sylvan Library and gives a card to Hidden. Chris starts off with an Esper Sentinel and plays a Verdant Catacombs as land. Ryan draws and gets a second counter on his Saga. He's keeping the no island game alive as he plays an Ancient Tomb and passes the turn. Hidden untaps and keeps his fish alive. He has an untapped Vault of Champions and casts a Smothering Tithe. Hidden does give a card to Chris off the Sentinel, and with the Tithe still on the stack, Chris cracks his fetch for a tapped Godless Shrine, but passes priority to Ryan, as he goes searching. With Ryan being the responsible blue player, casting a Force of Negation, exiling a Seagate Restoration. The Tithe is countered, and Hidden then slams down a Rhystic Study, because who doesn't love reminding players of their triggers? Steve activates his Sylvan, but doesn't keep any extras. A Tundra then comes out as his land drop, and he taps 3 for Najeela, this time giving Hidden a card off the Rhystic. But Steve isn't the only one not paying the Rhystic tax, as he taps 3 for his commander, Tymna, giving Hidden the draw and heading to combat. He decides to get a little payback as he sends a Sentinel at Hidden, who has no blockers. And on Chris's second main, he pays a life to draw off Tymna.
Oh man, that Rhystic. That Rhystic.
That's your problem. I dealt with this another time.
Yeah.
So I did my job.
Oh man, I wish I kept the hand with colors.
I'm not doing anything bad, I'm just drawing cards.
Until.
What?
Just 2.
I have 3 now.
Ugh.
With all the mana in the world.
Well, I mean, now this is tapped. I'm down to 5 mana.
Shame.
I know. Well, I mean, 5 mana if I let the fish die. True. Chris doesn't have a land and decides he needs to keep moving forward as he casts a Chromox, giving Hidden 2 cards this time. Chris imprints a Tainted Pact, and at his end step, Ryan takes 2 to create a construct from his saga. Ryan draws and gets his 3rd lore counter. He floats a colorless before searching out a Mox Diamond. He discards an Inventor's Fair and uses his floating colorless to cast a Soul Ring. There's a Fish, Rhystic, and Esper Sentinel trigger on the stack. Ryan decides to take 2 from his tomb to let Chris draw, but pays for Hidden's Rhystic, letting him draw 1 off the fish. An island finally comes out, and Ryan then casts his commander, Shorikai, giving another 2 cards to Hidden. And with the last of Ryan's mana, he activates Shorikai to draw 2, discard 1, and create a pilot token. Ryan then ends his turn with combat, sending his 4/4 construct at Hidden. Hidden untaps and decides to keep the fish around.
Is it only been the second turn that is in play? It's crazy.
Yeah. Hidden plays and cracks Verdant Catacombs. He sees Ryan already has an island, so Hidden decides to grab an Underground Sea. He knows how much people have been enjoying the tax effect and decides to complete the trifecta as he casts an Esper Sentinel. He then follows that up with a Talisman of Dominance. There's an Esper trigger on the stack, and Hidden gives a card to Chris. Steve Sylvans again, but doesn't keep any extras. He adds a green from his fish and uses it to cast a Wild Growth on his Tundra. This sets off another sea of triggers, as Chris just puts his Sentinel on the stack, followed by Hidden Sentinel, Rhystic, and Mystic Remora going on top. Steve can't pay for the fish, but does tap all of his lands to pay for the Rhystic and both Sentinels, with Steve ending his turn with combat. He sends Najeela and her newly created warrior in, 4/4, with Chris at his end step entombing.
Trigger.
Hidden draws, but the entomb resolves, finding Chris an LED to put in his bin. Chris untaps and plays a luxury suite as land. He then heads to combat and sends Tymna at Hidden, with the Esper going at Steve. Both have no blocks, and on his second main, Chris uses the 2 life off Tymna to draw 2 more cards. And what's even more surprising is Chris just passes after that. Ryan plays a City of Brass's land and wants to get in on the action, as he casts a Rhystic of his own. This time, Chris's Esper gets on top of Hidden's triggers, and Ryan decides on what he'll pay for. He ends up not paying any tax, and Chris and Hidden both draw, with Ryan following that up with a Grand Abolisher. He gives a card to Hidden, who lets it resolve. Ryan then heads to combat and sends his 4/4 construct and pilot at Hidden for 5. Hidden finally lets his fish go. He then casts a Monastery Mentor. He lets Ryan draw off his Rhystic and follows that up with a Scrub land. He then casts a Jeweled Lotus and gives a card to both Chris and Ryan. He also triggers his Mentor for a monk and hands the turn over, discarding a few cards due to hand size. Steve triggers his Sylvan and doesn't take any extras. He creates a black from his carpet and casts a Vampiric Tutor. Chris has an Esper Sentinel, Ryan has a Rhystic, and Hidden has both triggers.
I want to be responsible. Okay. Pay 1 there. Pay 1 there. Pay both of them there.
Okay. That's responsible.
Yeah. I'm a very responsible player.
Sure.
I mean, at that, yeah, go for it. Steve then finds his card to put on top and moves to combat, He sends Najeela, his warrior, and the 2 newly created warriors at Chris, to which he responds by activating his grinding station to sacrifice itself to mill Steve, who mills both a Derevi and a Dockside off the top of his library. And still before damage, Chris casts an Ad Nos, triggering 2 Ristics and a Sentinel to let Hidden and Ryan both draw.
Go for it.
Yeah, I agree. Go for it.
Really? Really?
Chris then starts revealing cards off the top, with some notable hits being an Underworld Breach, Wishclaw, and a Ranger Captain. He ultimately decides he's gotten enough off the Nos and finally lets combat finish, as he takes another 6 from the attack.
Maybe you should have let that ad house resolve.
Okay people, here we're going to have a whole bunch of triggers this turn, as Ryan starts off casting a Mana Crypt. Hidden and Ryan draw. Next up is a Mox Diamond, discarding a Scalding Tarn. Hidden and Ryan draw again. Mox Opal, 2 more draws.
I mean, me being responsible means nothing when everybody else is like, draw.
A Cavern of Souls then comes out naming humans, as Chris taps it for a white to cast an Auriok Salvagers. Hidden and Ryan draw, and the creature resolves. He then activates the Auriok to bring the LED back into hand and cast it. Hidden and Ryan draw, with Chris following that up with an Underworld Breach. Hidden and Ryan draw, with Ryan firing off a Pact Negation, triggering Hidden to draw 2 and Chris draw off his Esper Sentinel as well. But the Pact resolves. A Dockside then comes out from Chris, letting Hidden and Ryan draw. With the Dockside still on the stack, Ryan activates Shorikai to dig, and the Dockside ends up resolving, with him gaining 15 treasure tokens. 3 mana then gets him a Jeska, letting Hidden and Ryan draw again. Jeska then downticks to deal 1 to Hidden, and using more of his treasure, he recasts the Walker. Hidden and Ryan draw. Jeska is then downticked to deal 2 to Hidden, his Sentinel, and Najeela, with Chris then using the last of his treasure to recast Jeska. Hidden and Ryan draw. And this time he downticks to deal 3 to Hidden, the Grand Abolisher, and 3 to Steve, with Chris then cracking his LED for triple white. He discards his hand and then activates his Salvager, targeting the LED. And this time it's Hidden's turn to respond, as he casts a Silence. He gives a card to Chris off the Esper, but the table does forget about Ryan's Ristic, as the Silence resolve and Chris passes the turn. Although, let's pause the video, as I know that turn probably triggered a lot of people. And I know a bunch of you are probably going down to the comment section right now about how Chris should have played that turn. My thoughts were he should have used his Cavern to try and cast his Ranger Captain. Even if it would have caused Hidden Silence to go off then, he still would have a full grip to go off next turn. Also, having both a Savines and an Underworld Breach, he probably should have used his Kiln Commander to kill his Dockside. So if either resolved, it would have been a good way of refueling if he didn't want to rely on LED, since it does empty his hand. But let's get back into this game. And yes, we did forget about the Pact trigger, as Ryan has another island and casts a Mox Opal. He gives a card to Hidden and Chris, and taps 4 to cast a Humility. Hidden draws off the Ristic, but the enchantment resolves. A Mana Crypt then comes out, giving a card to Hidden. Next is a Mana Vault, Hidden draws, and finally an Unwinding Clock. Hidden draws and then fires off a Dovin's Veto on the clock. He gives a card to Ryan and the clock is countered. Ryan then heads to his end step with Hidden casting a Mystical Tutor. He gives another card to Ryan and goes hunting for a card. Hidden ends up grabbing a Dramatic Reversal to the top of his deck, with Ryan having to discard down due to hand size. Hidden untaps, and during his upkeep, Ryan casts a Silence. Hidden does draw off the Ristic and fires off a Force of Will, exiling a Chain of Vapor. And funnily enough, he actually pays for Ryan's Ristic. Ryan then activates Shorikai to draw, and the Force resolves. Hidden then draws for turn and casts a Mana Crypt, paying for the Ristic. He then casts a Demonic Tutor and pays for it again. He finds a card to hand and then shocks in a Watery Grave as land for turn. He then casts his Isochron Scepter and gives Ryan a card. The Scepter resolves and Hidden imprints a Dramatic Reversal. He then activates the Scepter to cast the Reversal. There's another heuristic and hidden pays for it and untaps. Although I didn't realize at the time I could go infinite even through the heuristic, Hidden decides to channel an Otawaro just in case. He then gets infinite colorless and blue, to which he then casts a mana vault and a lotus petal. Following that up with a vanishing verse to remove the humility, and with that, Hidden can cast his commander, activate him a bunch, and draw a stack, and win with Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation. And before I get onto the game review, I did want to thank a special Patreon member, LF Cruz, for his support of the channel. Game review. Well damn, that was too many triggers. And while I figure most of you guessed that Hidden was going to win, that was still quite the fight. It did stink for Steve that he was just kinda out of the game, as his Sylvan was showing him nothing but lands. And even though it normally is a good source of card advantage, it just couldn't compete. I do think the table just got to a point where it just said F it and let Hidden draw as many cards as you want. Although funnily enough, Hidden wasn't holding that much counter magic, and it was Ryan with the added counter backup that kept Chris under control, even with a 15 treasure dockside and an uncontested Adnos. But thanks to everyone that played, and as a reminder, I am a community ambassador for Monarch Media, and while I can't say anything just yet, they're back and ready to create some quality CDH tournaments and events. So if you're interested in finding out more, check the links down below. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I just wanted to let you know that we have a TCG affiliate link, and if you ever see a card you want to try or are inspired to brew something new, use our link when purchasing and we'll receive a small portion of the sale. This is a great way to support the channel, and if you enjoyed the gameplay, please leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps us keep making videos. And remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board. I'll see you guys later.